Great, thank you. Welcome everyone. This was an extra meeting that we put in, and it really is about the future plans for the special schools in Swansea. And I'm very pleased to see Helen Morgan Rees, our director, here to talk about those plans. And she will give us a short presentation and consultation feedback and next steps, and this would give us the opportunity then to ask any questions and to give our view in a letter to the cabinet member. So that will give us a way forward. Great. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, Bev Hopkins and Robert Smith.
Councillor Robert Smith, yes. Helen said has suffered a bereavement in the family, isn't it? And so we wish him all the best with that, because obviously that's the case, a sad occasion. Right, are there any disclosures? And if so, Michelle will email out a template. Okay, as we all know, it's the prohibition of whip votes. And the next item is public question time. There are no questions from the public, so we're racing through at a rate of knots. But the important bit is obviously the brief by Helen Morgan Rees, our director. Helen, can I go over to you?
Thanks, Chair. Hopefully the PowerPoint is getting ready to share. It'd be helpful if one of the Michelles can indicate really if it's on screen for everybody.
Yes, it is.
It is, yeah, that's lovely, thank you. So thanks everybody for the opportunity of coming here this afternoon to discuss really where we are with our special schools, where we want to be with our special schools in the next few years. So just a short PowerPoint. If we have questions at the end, that would be really helpful. So in the few slides that I've got to share with you, I think it's vitally important really that we reflect on the vision for the special school in Swansea. So obviously we have two special schools currently, both providing for a discrete or distinct cohort of pupils. And our vision is to support our most vulnerable learners, to ensure that we have sufficient specialist places for special education needs children or additional needs children in Swansea, and also to provide excellent learning environments for all our children where possible. So we know that the vision for the special school is very much a shared vision, not just from a cabinet perspective, but also from the schools themselves. So already the schools will have been involved in supporting a strategic outline case to present to Welsh Government really in terms of work going on in the background for this. No determination has been made yet because we're still in that period. According to the statutory timeline that we've got, we have to have key milestones really to ensure that we consult on a statutory footing in the right way. But the case for change for this school can be seen really by visiting the schools in terms of the buildings themselves, suitability, particularly when you visit Cree Glass. The hydrotherapy pool there is not in the best condition. The changing facilities there for the young learners is not great. So there's obviously a case for change, both in terms of locale. Cree Glass isn't placed in the best position in the city. It's not in an area where you would normally think a school should be. So a relocation probably is on the cards there. But obviously the Pen-y-Bryn site as well, we've got buildings that are not as suitable as they should be and adaptations needed. But also, as I said earlier, we need to increase our specialist places. So part of the vision is sufficient specialist places in Swansea, not elsewhere. And educating our learners here in Swansea is what we want to do, rather than send them to special independent schools out of county. So the learner benefits around this proposal are immense really in terms of the facilities, those state-of-the-art facilities for learners, the ones that you would expect to see in the 21st century, that learners will benefit from those surroundings and learning environments, plus the specialist facilities and equipment that's required to support their needs. So in terms of best use of resource, obviously this is part of our original Band B proposals, and that investment really, or prioritisation of investment, was made as part of Band B, which has now been rolled over into what we call Sustainable Communities for Learning, and that's a 9-year programme that was highlighted in Cabinet recently as well. So in terms of the best use of resources, obviously the intervention rate in terms of Welsh Government borrowing for such a scheme is to the tune of 75% from Welsh Government. So the local contribution for our capital contribution is 25% of whatever the size of the total envelope for the scheme ends up to be. So at the moment, as you can see from the first slide, the indicative cost is circa £43.6 million for a build of a new special school for 350 learners, which is a considerable size. And you can see from elsewhere in Wales that other parts of Wales, like Gwynedd and the Vale of Glamorgan, have built purpose-built state-of-the-art facilities for their special needs learners as well. So we can learn and gain from those experiences elsewhere in Wales. So as I said, this is a statutory proposal and it's aligned to the School Organisation Code. So it's enshrined in law really in terms of how we consult, who we consult with, and the timescales and key milestones for consultation. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that during the course of the presentation. So in terms of what the proposal actually tells us or asks of residents and citizens and staff in schools and learners in schools, what are we actually proposing? Well, it's a two-part proposal. The first part is an amalgamation, and we would seek for that amalgamation between the two schools to happen a year in September, so September 2025. And then subsequent to that, we would use that opportunity where we've brought two schools together in an amalgamation to work to co-design and prepare for a new build, state-of-the-art building on one site, with obviously more space and more facilities for the learners to attend in 2028. So that it's quite a long period of time. We're consulting now, but we're not going to be handing over the keys until 2028. So that seems like a long time, but in terms of building terms, that will disappear very quickly. So I just want to take you through a few slides, giving you visual representations of what it could look like. And please, these are by no stretch of the imagination actual designs or concepts that we've worked on. These are very much what it could look like, not what we intend it to look like. So obviously, as you've seen from other new builds in Swansea, the state-of-the-art buildings are very attractive, a lot of light coming through, and they just look visually very pleasing. But in terms of the specialist sector, we obviously need to make sure that we've got sensory provision there. Obviously, the areas of learning need to be very open, and we need to ensure that we consider the colour scheme for certain learners as well as part of our considerations. The outdoor facilities, they also need to be very much attuned to the needs and the adaptations needed to meet the needs of learners who will attend. And as you can see there, this is a visual representation of a very open, welcoming space, plenty of space compared to what we have now in terms of current provision. And then the hydrotherapy pool I mentioned earlier, there would be a need really to make sure that we have fit for purpose facilities going forward. So what's happened so far? Well, rolling back to September 2023, we as officers went to Cabinet and we sought permission from Cabinet to start a consultation on this very proposal, knowing that we had behind us some kind of direction from Welsh Government around the suitability of proposing such a scheme already. Plus, we'd held workshops with the head teachers in both schools to understand and take a temperature check of their kind of thoughts around the proposal. So all that had happened in the background before we took it to Cabinet last year. So Cabinet allowed us, or they approved the recommendation to go out to consultation, and that opened the window really for consultation to commence, I believe, on the 9th of October, and it ran until the 24th of October. And during that consultation period, all elected members in Swansea Council were provided with a copy of the consultation report, and indeed a survey which allowed them to submit a response should they desire at that point in time. And I think that was sent out on the first day of consultation to everybody. So following the closure of the consultation, I'll tell you a little bit more about the consultation response in a minute. A consultation response report was then required to go to Cabinet. So we were able to compile that in December and take it to Cabinet in January this year. And the determination really from a Cabinet perspective in terms of decision making was to decide to publish a statutory notice, which is part of what's required in the code. So that statutory notice then was published on the 2nd of February, and the window really for the statutory notice objection period, that window of opportunity, will end on the 5th of March. So we're in the middle of it really, although the 5th of March will come quickly. And it's worth noting that of the consultees that responded in October and November, none of them have actually submitted an objection, and although they were consultees, they would still need to object within the objection period proper in order to have their objection kind of counted. So although we took on views and opinions in the consultation period, the actual objection period, according to regulation and law, is between the 2nd of February and the 5th of March. So then once that objection period is shut on the 5th of March, there'll be an opportunity then to go back to Cabinet, and there will be call-in periods obviously that we need to abide by, but we expect whatever the determination is around this proposal, that determination will be published and made known in a letter on the 1st of May. And depending on the determination on the 1st of May, then it could result in an amalgamation and a further construction period, and the implementation then to fully deliver the scheme and the proposal would be September 2028. But it's likely that there could be a handing over of keys before September 2028, but we're not making any promises because we don't know at this point in time who the construction company is and the contractor is even. So that is the timeline. And then I think it's important for us to dwell on how we consulted. This was very much a meaningful consultation, and all the documents, should scrutiny panelists want to review those documents, are available when you Google school organisation. Future plans for special schools is all available on the council's website. So it was very comprehensive. And all the products, really, all the reports, all the presentations that were taken to consultees are there visibly on the public website for people to look at and even scrutinise further if needed. So in terms of co-production, the special school consultation, obviously we ensured that we were working together as officers from different departments as well. So we took on board the views of social services, we've worked with health, obviously we're working with the Welsh Government, and as I said, we're working with the existing head teachers of both schools to gauge their opinions. And there was a varied opportunity for consultees because of the nature of the consultees. We had learners with obviously different needs, and we ensured that we got a response from them by speaking to their teachers to ensure that we had the best way to make communication with them. So that resulted in, I think, 66 learners responding to the consultation, which is quite a high number. And we've got a full breakdown on that website area. You can see really who the consultees were, how many responded, who they were in terms of were they residents, parents, were they a regulator or from elsewhere. So it's all available. But we didn't just do a survey in terms of consultation. We held face-to-face meetings. There was an opportunity for people to come into the Guildhall even, but we tended to go outreach and go out to the schools themselves. And that's where we had the biggest yield in terms of participation, particularly from staff members. So when you have a look at the numbers, you can see that staff were the main people to respond to this consultation, as you'd expect, I guess. There were responses from residents, which I'll touch upon in a minute. Well, we hand-delivered those letters to adjacent residents. And when we talk about who the residents are, I think after I finish my presentation, I'm going to ask Michelle Thomas, who's joined me, to put a map on the screen so you can actually see the area we're talking about. We can't define the boundaries yet of the special school, but we can tell you roughly on the map where it is and who the residents were that we contacted via hand-delivered letter. All of this is in the public domain, and I must pay tribute really to the school organisation team who have led on this consultation. It's been very thorough, very comprehensive, and I know Michelle Thomas here, her team is responsible for that. So I just want to pay tribute for the diligent work that's been done. So in terms of the opportunity to respond in different ways, face-to-face meetings, surveys, QR codes, we pulled everything out of the bag really to make sure we had as thorough a response as possible. Now, the list of consultees is prescribed to us by the code, and there is a statutory list that we have to abide by. So this list in front of you here is a slice of it. It's not the whole list, but it gives you a sense really of the types of groups that we had to engage with. As I said earlier, elected members, they were all consulted with. Residents, as we've heard about. Governors in both schools, we spoke to governors as well as staff in both schools, and they were given the opportunity to feedback on survey. Learners, integral to this, they are very much at the heart of this proposal, and we wanted to make sure they were front and centre in terms of their voice and their opinion as well. Our Estin regulator, they had quite a lengthy response to our consultation, and there are two tests really for the regulator. One, would this proposal give us at least as good an education in the new single site special school as the current situation? The answer was yes. And is it a meaningful, well-constructed proposal? The answer was yes. Estin did have one opinion they wanted to share with us, and that was, why do you want to amalgamate in 2025 and then wait 3 years before building? But we were able to mitigate that view from Estin and say that bringing both sets of staff and formulating one governing body as early as we could would give us a fair wind really and a fair crack at designing something as one school rather than waiting for it to get on site. And obviously we don't know how long it's going to take in terms of the actual build, but we indicate it's 2028 in terms of handover. Children's Commissioner was another consultee. Obviously Carmarthenshire, Neath Talbot, we had to get in touch with, and also the advocacy services for ALN, particularly the Parent Care Forum in Swansea, and other services as well were consulted with. So I'm near the end, you'd be happy to know. So as I said, I haven't got a map in my presentation, but I think it's only right that Scrutiny are able to see visually whereabouts it will be. So that'll come separately. But it is adjacent to the Pen y Bryn site, where Pen y Bryn currently is on Mynydd Garn Llwyd. And the key thing in terms of locale is that it's in Swansea. It's about not shipping out our learners to other places across Wales, keeping them close to home, so their well-being is very much protected as well, so they don't have to travel great distances. And obviously we had a short list of 23 potential sites across the city. So the short list was 23, and we came down to, I think, 1 or 2 in the end, but the only feasible site was the site we found that Michelle will show you in a minute. So what were the consultation responses? So they were largely positive. And the learner benefits were really highlighted in those positive responses. and they really very much supported the need for local provision and also the need to increase our specialist places to make sure that we've got enough to meet the needs of all learners coming through the system in future years. So it's very much future proofed, and originally we were looking to make it a 300 school, but we can see now that there is a business case for making it a 350 pupil school, first as last, knowing that the demand is there in terms of learner needs. In terms of the negative responses, there were only 4, and we can break those 4 down into 2 residents and 2 parent carers. So the residents were concerned, as you can imagine, about extra traffic and pollution, the kinds of responses you'd expect from residents. And the 2 parent carer responses were encapsulated really, I think, in consideration of not segregating specialist learners from mainstream. That was one consideration. And the second point of contention for them was the mix of learners, because currently Cree Glas services profound and multiple learning difficulties as one school, and then Pen y Bryn has a different cohort, a different type of learner in terms of their needs. So Pen y Bryn currently has moderate and severe learning difficulties, which is a different category, so to speak, in comparison to the profound and multiple learning difficulties. So that was one, not objection, but one comment in terms of a less negative view of the proposal. So we think by the public report that you can see as part of Cabinet Papers and on the Council's website, you can see our responses to each consultee response. You can see a local authority response then, kind of mitigating some of those worries, which I think is really helpful. So this is a distillation really of the statutory notice. The actual wording is much longer, but I've broken it down into something that could appear on one slide. So there are 4 parts to the statutory notice that is currently live. And if anybody wants to object to this proposal in these 4 parts, then that window of opportunity, as I said, is open until the 5th of March. But we're not expecting anything so far. Nothing has been received in terms of objections, particularly from the consultees that we've engaged with already. So the next steps, what needs to happen next? Well, as I said, we've got to follow that statutory timeline. We can't deviate away from that. Obviously, people's opinions still need to be considered, but more importantly, the objections, if there are any before or on the 5th of March, we need to consider those carefully. We need to develop the detail pending any decision in partnership, whatever happens next. If there's a positive determination by Cabinet on April the 18th, we need to move forward in partnership if that is a positive determination. And obviously, if there are suggestions from health, from other colleagues across the council, we would act on those sensible suggestions as well. We wouldn't discount other people working in the council who think they can support the design of the new building and the schedule of the building. But really important that we continue to engage with our stakeholders. And that is the end of the presentation, really. So happy to take questions.
Great, thank you. Thanks very much, Helen. Was Michelle going to show the site?
Yes, that would be helpful if she could do that
welcome,
now.
Michelle.
Yeah.
Thanks. So the site there, if you can see the part of green, so we don't know, as Helen mentioned, we don't know where the site is actually going to be located, where the school will be built. We don't even know where the entrance points will be to the site, but it is on this large piece of green land there. So when we did the leaflet drop, which Helen mentioned earlier, all surrounding residents of here, they were all provided with the letter to inform them of the consultation. We did also put it in the locality, so Cree Glas and Pen y Bryn, we put it in the local housing office and the library and the like, so the more general residents in the area were also made aware.
Okay, right, got a number of hands up. We'll start off with Angela.
Hi there, thank you. Four negative responses is obviously very good. Compared to positive, that you had. I'm just wondering how many people kind of came forward with positive responses, comparing that to only 4 negatives.
Yeah, I've got the total number in front of me, Angela, so I don't know if Michelle can access that information quickly. But I know, we had, for example, the survey alone, and this is outside of the face-to-face meetings, we had 16 people use the survey. Then, in some of the staff meetings, we had over 50 people, and a lot of those then responded, as part of the meeting. So every people's voice was captured in a different way. So I don't know what the total count was, and if we count somebody speaking in a meeting as a response, but the official survey, I think, was 16 in total, wasn't it, Michelle?
Yes, it was 16 from the consultation. Actual responses coming through in email, 12 of which were in support and 4 said that they weren't. Just to make it clear, where we in relation to the pupils, we had a separate pupil paper of which the teachers went through the pupils because they had different mechanisms of communicating with those pupils, and the pupil paper was more in layman's terms, in a language that the pupils could understand and would be able to respond to. And obviously we had 66 responses, as Helen said, on the pupil side, and of those 42 were really supportive and gave positive comments, and 24 said that they didn't know, so maybe they didn't quite understand, or a lot of the pupils did comment that it wouldn't really affect them because they knew that they would have left the system by the time that this proposal happened. So I don't know, also meant that it wouldn't affect them, but we did have more positive in the main.
Great, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's really helpful, Alan, and I think fully supportive of the proposals, and somewhat envious. When I launched QED in 2005, I think the intervention rate by the Welsh Government was 25%. It was the other way around. So we're really grateful for the support that Welsh Government can give in terms of this capital proposal. I'm really pleased and delighted with the way in which the consultation exercise has been undertaken. So important, isn't it, to engage all of the key stakeholders and to ensure that everybody feels that they've had their say. It was just really a kind of a comment, and it's a shame really that the timescales won't work, in the sense that the suggestion that's being made of moving Bishop Vaughan off their site, they would have a larger site across the road to work on, but I don't think sort of timescales are going to be allowing for us to do that. And I think it's more important really that these youngsters are given the best facilities that we can offer as soon as we can. So I think we need to just progress that as quickly as we can.
Great, thank you. Helen, do you want to respond? Or?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's a very exciting proposal, and ultimately we need the staff and the governing bodies of both schools to be au fait and comfortable and excited about the proposal as well. And as part of the survey in the consultation, we know that both governing bodies have responded, one through the survey, one through a letter, to give their wholehearted support for the proposal, which is really crucial for us in terms of taking it forward. And in terms of a suitable site, obviously, when we did the scoping exercise, when we did our strategic outline case to Welsh Government, we didn't have permission then to go to demolish the current Daniel James site. So it's kind of getting those ducks in order. But what we know as well is obviously the land in Bishop Vaughan doesn't belong to us. It's the diocese's land, so they can sell it and do whatever they want with it, and we can't necessarily bag it for education, so to speak.
Great, thank you. Sandra, next.
First of all, thank you, Helen, for that presentation. I was coming into this meeting having looked at what was on the council website and thinking we're spending 40 odd million and 16 people have responded. And now I'm beginning to understand that it's a little bit more than that. But in a way, that's probably misleading, that consultation, that yes, those are the written responses or the online responses, but I can see you've done far more than that on this project. What I wonder is, I've got a few questions because this seems to have happened quite quickly. My first one is, what category buildings are we effectively getting rid of in terms of Cree Glas and Pen y Bryn? So are they, you said they're in a relatively negative state, but are they category D buildings, for example? I'm going to ask a question around, there's a few here, as I say, I'm going to ask a question around home to school transport. Of course, we want to reduce that issue, not increase in terms of monetary. How is it going to impact? If you merge two schools and put them on one site, I would expect home to school transport costs to increase, not decrease. You may have a different, you know, your research may show something different. How many extra pupils are we catering for? You're saying there's going to be 350 learners. What have we currently got? And most important in that section is how many of those are currently out of county that we'd be bringing back in? Because that obviously would suggest a saving if we're bringing them back in from out of county. And my final question is around the consultation. You said you sent out to all councillors on about the 9th of October. Are you able to confirm, because this it's a difficult one, but I genuinely don't remember seeing anything about this, and I really need to backtrack to see what was sent at that time, if possible, please. So I know I've bombarded you with a number of questions. Apologies.
No, really good questions. Thank you, Councillor Joy. I'll start with question 5. So at, I think it was just 5 to 10 in the morning on the 9th of October. That's the time when all councillors were sent this, and they would have been sent it possibly through one of our officers called Kellyn. So maybe that would be helpful for you to have a look at. But we can certainly circulate it, all that information again to the scrutiny panelists for information, just in case. We'll forward it again. Then turn into the first question around, I think it was, can you remind me what your first question was? I can't read my scrawly writing.
Listed buildings, I think, Helen.
Oh yeah. So obviously the condition of buildings, Michelle will be able to confirm, they're certainly not category D in terms of condition, even from our latest survey. But at the time, we considered a number of factors, not just condition, we considered suitability. So that was, for special schools, quite a considerable factor. The suitability of the buildings had greater weighting really than the condition. So I don't know, Michelle, if you've got that information on the current conditions of the buildings, but they're certainly not category D.
Yeah, no, I'm looking, bear with, and I'll come back.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. So in terms of home to school transport, then I can read my writing on point 2, which is helpful. So obviously the increase of transport required from one location potentially is going to be an issue. But Pen y Bryn are very much on board with our minibus pilot. So you'll have heard about that in, I think, the budget scrutiny recently. You'll have heard last week about that. So we're trying to work on the basis that we provide more transport in-house. So that is something we would definitely wish to increase and ensure is implemented in this new site build. And I know, you know, we've increased our minibus stock as well. We've actually bought some minibuses to support this agenda as well in the specialist sector. So that's definitely something we want to do. So as I said, the new special school will have 350 learners. Currently we're catering in Swansea for 250 learners. And the most recent addition to specialist learning needs was in 2021. So we enabled the use of Arfryn as a site, which was an ex-PRU site in Swansea. We enabled that to be used for post-16 learners, for older learners in Pen y Bryn, to have kind of an annex there, so they could that could support their independent living and life skills as well. So that happened in September 2021. So currently at 250, moving up to 350. And I think that's covered it. Oh, out of county, that's important, because it's unlikely that we would get the current learners who are out of county to come back in. That's not what we want to do. We don't want to disrupt their learning necessarily, but it's to thinking of the future to prevent that happening in future. So the cost really, it can be for an out-of-county learner a high cost to send them out of county, and it's avoiding those future costs by bringing them, you know, educating them in county to begin with. So we can't necessarily guarantee we get those learners back in as they continue their journey elsewhere.
Of course, I fully understand that you wouldn't disrupt the current learners, but looking at the types of needs, and I know they're all individual, but the types of needs the out-of-county learners currently have, are you looking to make sure that if the same child came along in 2026, you know, 2028 or something, you would therefore be able to say, we can deal with this in-house?
Yes, definitely, because we're looking for more suitable facilities, and that's what we're trying to engender, really. The other element as well is this is a whole kind of landscape of sufficient specialist places. So we've got a service transformation committee in education currently looking at specialist teaching facilities, of which there are 38 across 34 of our schools. So we're redesigning that currently to ensure that some of those learners potentially could fit into the special school. And that would release some more space in the specialist teaching facility area as well. So it's ensuring that we've got enough pipeline of provision to meet all the needs and growing needs for our learners in Swansea. And we've got statistics and some research to suggest that that need is increasing. So we're trying to future-proof this really to make sure that, yes, we know that learners need to be included in terms of mainstream settings as well. But for certain types of learners, their needs simply cannot be met in a mainstream setting. So we just need a myriad of provision across the city that is sufficient in number to meet all the needs.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Fiona.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Helen, for the presentation. It's very interesting, and how I know a little bit about the site in Ysgol Creg Glas, and I know, although there's bound to be trepidation about moving from somewhere that is so carefully the children's needs are so carefully supported, looking at the facilities that could be available in a new build, is quite exciting. I just wanted to ask, I was wondering about the needs of the children, and you referred to that presumably there would still be entry via an inclusion panel to consider, entry criteria. And I just wondered, would that be reviewed? Because you talked about moderate learning difficulties being catered for now in Ysgol Pen y Bryn. And I just wondered whether, given, aims to get, children's needs met in their local mainstream school, if at all possible, and, considering universal learning provision, would the entry criteria for the new school still include moderate learning difficulties or severe, or would it just be severe, complex, and so on? Or, just would that be reviewed then?
It's a really, really good question, and everything would be under review really, but you're right, it will be an ALN panel referral really for this type of provision. But as time goes on, we could see that a need to recalibrate that, as you rightly point out. So we need to keep a watchful eye really on, the number of places we've got and the types of learners coming through the system and how best do we meet those needs. And if it's not in a specialist setting, could it be in a facility in a school, or could it be in a mainstream classroom? We've got to keep asking those questions. And really the ALN Act puts learners at the heart of all of this, and we need to make decisions that really furnish their particular needs well, rather than think, oh, we've got this number of places, we need to fill it as well. But we are confident that from our analysis really of figures coming through, that we will have enough pupils to fill the 350 places we've created as well.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank
Is it 3 to 18?
Sorry, Fiona. Yeah, you carry on.
Sorry. Is it 3 to 18? You said, Helen.
Yes, it is, isn't it, Michelle? 3 to 18, because we've currently got provision for post-16 in Pen y Bryn learners, so that will continue. So essentially the plan is to continue the types of provision for current learners we've got, but on a larger scale.
Thank you. Sorry to jump in.
Right. Angela.
I'm assuming, and just put my phone on charge, I'm assuming that it doesn't mean any job losses. I guess I just wanted confirmation that the merging wouldn't mean that there was any job losses, and maybe it would increase job opportunity.
Really good question to ask, and we can't guarantee zero job loss, because essentially we would bring two schools together and that would mean only one head teacher. So there would be a change in terms of the senior leadership teams, and indeed we would bring two governing bodies together. So potentially that could mean one or two losses of governors, you never know. So we can't make that guarantee, but what we can say is that there'd be a full staff consultation on any staffing implications with trade unions. The normal protocols would apply, and obviously by giving the earliest opportunity for people to see what the vision is, what the proposal will be in 2028, I think that allows people enough time to consider, what's best in terms of what they want to commit to themselves as leaders.
Yeah, I understand that. Did you say that this was going to increase capacity for an extra 100 pupils? And in which case, would you not need extra staff for those extra 100 pupils?
At a teaching level, yes, but at a leadership level, no. So that's where I can't say zero loss of jobs. There's no guarantee of that because of the need for one leader rather than two. And I think that's been made explicit already.
Thank you.
Okay. I can see a number of hands up. Francesca next, and then Michelle, if you want to come in. Francesca.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Sorry, apologies, I got my camera off. My signal is awful, but it was just going off Angela's point about any possible redundancies, and I appreciate we can't confirm at this point. But I guess, do we have the figures as to perhaps maybe teachers or head teachers that may be coming naturally to the end of their career or retirement? Would we have sort of an indication perhaps of those that would be coming to retirement age?
Yeah, we do profile the ages of our workforce, but I don't think it's appropriate for us to make further comment in this public forum.
Yeah,
no,
okay,
that's fine. Thank you.
Michelle.
Thanks. It's just to echo there that obviously with regards to the head teacher, it would be for the new governing body. So when the new governing body are formed, that new governing body would make the decision as to whether we ring fence to the two existing head teachers or whether we externally advertise nationally. So it's just to make that point that the post, the head teacher post, we may have one redundancy, we may have two redundancies. It depends on the governing body decision. The local authority, that's not our decision to make. That would be for the new governing body when it's formed.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. James.
Yeah, again, just to say, it looks like a pretty wide-ranging consultation was done here. It's just, and a little bit of this is because I'm quite new in this area. It's just you raised the difference between the consultation and objections. It was just to clarify, because a lot of people don't realise that. Were people made aware at the consultation that if they did think it was a bad idea, was it really robustly communicated to them that they would have to formally object as well?
I'll come in first. Michelle can correct me, but I believe that the actual consultation meetings had PowerPoint presentations, and I think those presentations are also on the public website. But you can see clearly that those presentations made reference that it's not good enough just to respond, you still need to object formally. So I believe that was made clear. In terms of the survey, Michelle, do you want to tell us more about that? Did that survey kind of point to the need to object as well?
Yeah, that's fine. And just to reiterate, I suppose, that whilst we had the 16 responses in, we also, as part of the consultation response report, did kind of minute the questions and answers from the general minutes. So you can see and have a flavour of the questions that we were asked during those consultation minutes and the meetings that we held with staff, governors and parents, and obviously external stakeholders as well. But yeah, as part of the process, when people did respond to the consultation document, they were asked if they wanted to be kept informed of progress, and if they were, they'd give us an email address. So at the next stage then, we've emailed out to those individuals to let them know that the consultation response report was ready and what the next steps would be, so they'd know then that they'd have to formally object.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's great. Just a little subtlety I wanted to check up on. And then just the only other thing was obviously the Esting concern around the 2025 merger. Obviously, I've I've read the response. It looks quite comprehensive. Have Estin fed back to you what they feel about said response? I wasn't clear in the public documentation. Are they happy with the authorities' response?
I don't think we've had a further response from Estin. So essentially, they sent us a letter. We gave a response in the public domain. And I guess the next step for Estin would be to object, and we don't envisage that happening, given they felt we had a sound proposal based on a good rationale. So it'd be unlikely for them to follow up in any way, and we're not expecting it. And Michelle is agreeing with me, so I'm glad.
Great. In which case, yeah, that's answered that concern. I mean, the response looks fine, but it was just to clarify, as obviously it was relatively the strongest objection they seem to have. So thank you very much.
Sandra.
Hi, yeah. One of the things, obviously, the council is having to find £10 million in order to produce this. I do understand that the government are coming up with the rest of it. Has there been any impact on any other schools in terms of the capital building project? Has anything else had to be put back in order for this to happen? In other words, have priorities changed in the council as a result of this proposal, which in a sense only came out in September 2023?
Very much to the contrary. So Band B had, I think it had 12 priorities, and at the start of the tenure of Band B in the previous administration, the special school was highly prioritised. It was kind of top of the list, but it had to slip down, poor thing, because we had to prioritise condition C and condition D buildings, ones where business continuity was at risk. So I think, to be fair to this proposal, it's back higher now than it's ever been, because it's had to make way for the other schools. So I think it's got to a point where it needs to be built now, really, in terms of the thinking behind it.
That's helpful, thank you.
Great, fine, thank you. Are there any other questions from anyone? Can't see any hands up. Going to say, we're looking forward at the budget meeting. We looked at the minibus pilot, and we'll look forward to see how that is progressing, because that is really good news. And also the reduction of out-of-county provision eventually, because we'll have our own facility. That will take a while to feed in. But that is good news as well, because it'll be better, for the pupils concerned as well, because they won't have to travel out. But appreciate the fact that, people already are out of county, that will feed through until they, that will go on until they, in the main, till they finish. But obviously great news that we'll have that facility, and people will be able to look at the facility within the Swansea area rather than have to travel, which can only be good news. But if there aren't any other questions, we will be sending a letter to the cabinet member, Councillor Robert Smith, and we send him, our condolences. As you said, there's a bereavement in the family, and we send him our condolences and hope all will be okay for everything. We'll drop him a note. We will send that around to all members of the panel. Feel free to add any points or make any points to it, but that will come round in the next few days. But big thanks to Helen and to Michelle, for giving a really good presentation. So thanks for that, and to you all for asking questions. There were quite a few questions, and quite challenging questions, which is as it should be. And it is an important point, and this is an important development for Swansea, and we just want to get it right. And but thank you all very much indeed. And see you, dare I say, see you tomorrow. We've got a pre-meeting tomorrow, haven't we? So see you tomorrow. Bye.